Friends, welcome to this new episode. Today we have a really shocking case where there were deaths. And not only that, there's something particular that connected each of the details in a truly impressive way. So don't miss a minute of this story because it's worth it. For all the impatient ones who just want to hear the story and aren't interested in anything else, down below you'll see the exact minute when today's story begins. You can send your experiences in audio format to the WhatsApp number currently displayed. The quantity and duration are irrelevant, and you can add photos, videos, or anything else you think is appropriate to make your story as complete as possible. Then if it's selected and I have any questions, I'll be contacting you. Before we start, I want to tell you something that many of you have been asking me for a long time, and I had been putting it off for different reasons. There are several ways to support the channel. One is Super Thanks, something most of you already know, Cafecito from Argentina, and PayPal from abroad. I want to express my gratitude to all of you and everyone who supports us daily through these channels. But now there's something else, which is channel memberships. I'm sure all of you know what that's about. And before I continue with this, I want to make it clear that the channel is not going to have any changes. That is, this is for anyone who wants to join and become a member of the channel. The videos will continue to be free and everyone will have access to them as always. Simply, there might be some extra benefits like discounts on merchandise and also early access, probably to some of the videos that get published. But in general, the channel will remain the same for absolutely everyone, both members and non-members alike. I had this option on hold for a very long time, but since many of you are interested and have asked me to enable it, today is the day. Starting today, you'll be able to become members of the channel. Down here you'll see a little button that says Join, and from there you can manage everything. Remember that the channel will remain the same for everyone. Whether you're a member or not, the channel will stay exactly the same as always. Friends, you can now become members of Nervous Track. Thank you. I won't keep you longer. We're starting this new paranormal episode now. Welcome. My experience is actually divided into several events that ended up triggering and connecting something that, at least for me, is terrifying. In this story, it's not just about paranormal things. There were tragedies, deaths, and all of this was connected to something very, very dark. I want to make it clear that even though I'm going to share my experience, there are people involved in it who are not part of my family. They were actually neighbors who have no idea about what happened to me, about what I saw, what I knew, and maybe what I could have prevented. Something that since then hasn't let me sleep peacefully. The only thing I'm going to say is that my name is Fernando. I'm currently 44 years old and I live with my wife and 3 children in a town in Greater Buenos Aires, quite close to the capital city. A few years ago, something terrible happened in front of our house, and I believe nothing is a coincidence because that house had something peculiar. It's as if tragedy, darkness was waiting for anyone who lived in it. That house was rented out for many years, but before that it was the home of a married couple whose reasons, honestly, were never known. But one night they made the terrible decision to take their own lives. From that moment on, a relative of these people put the house up for rent, and it stayed that way for 10 or 12 years until it was sold to the last owners, whose story you are going to learn about today. But first, it's important to know what happened during the rental period, because many families lived in that house and never completed their lease. And we're talking about a very nice, functional house, above all, perfect for a family in a quiet middle-class neighborhood. Therefore, it always drew attention that every new tenant would leave within a matter of months. The house would be empty for a few weeks and then someone would move in again. Only on one occasion did a girl who had moved in with her partner and their child mention something that worried them about this house. They had mentioned it to another neighbor, not to us, but they were very clear. There was a bedroom they didn't dare to use because it made them feel extremely uncomfortable. Their son had supposedly seen a ghost walking in there. And not only that, at night it was almost common to hear a woman crying. At first they thought it was a neighbor or some noise from the street, but as time went by they realized it wasn't. It was coming from inside the house. And that bedroom they were afraid of was, interestingly enough, they never knew it, I think. Where did the life of that couple I told you about at the beginning end? This couple only lived there for a few months and then left. No one knew if something more intense happened to them, but I think it did. Just like everyone else who lived in this house, as I told you, no one lasted very long. Other tenants had a terrible experience. Shortly after they moved in, the car suddenly caught fire in the middle of the night. Luckily, the house didn't catch fire. Could it have been a short circuit? Possibly, but this detail is crucial for what comes later, so please wait. And it wasn't just the car. The wife of this couple was changing a light bulb on the porch of the house. Apparently, she made an imprecise movement and one of her feet slipped inside the ladder. She fell backward, and the result was an open fracture in her leg and a significant blow to her head. Luckily, she didn't die, but after this, they only stayed a few more weeks and then left. Like I said, many people passed through this house, there were many accidents, and no one stayed as long as they should have. And now we're going to move forward a bit in time. When this house was finally sold, I think there were so many complaints that that's exactly why they made this decision. The thing is, it was sold. A married couple moved into the house where the man was 58 years old and his wife was 60. If I recall, they were extremely friendly and got along well with several neighbors on the block from the start. And the truth is, what happened next was really hard. No one imagined it, but for me it was worse because I experienced something that left me really scared to this day. Shortly after they arrived in the neighborhood, their son also moved into a house on the next block. And it was normal to see him almost every day when he came to visit them, to eat with them, to bring or take something, or simply to have a snack. Just like his parents, he was very polite. He was, if I'm not mistaken, about 25 years old. He had been living abroad during an internship and had come back. The thing is, about a month and a half after this couple arrived, I started doing some work in front of my house, specifically painting and also working on the garden. And it was very strange for me during one of those mornings to look over at the house across the street and to find a person standing in the side hallway of the house, which was the way to get to the back. This person, from the way I saw him standing, was looking inside the house through one of the side windows. I couldn't make out his features. He was dressed completely in black, had short dark hair, and his skin was white, very, very white. I couldn't make out any more details than that. And well, the first thing I thought was that maybe it was someone doing some kind of repair work in the house. But when I saw that minutes went by and he didn't move from his spot, I started to think he might be a thief. But it was also strange for him to be there without moving in broad daylight, knowing that I was right in front of him. Also, neighbors frequently passed by. I went into the house, called my partner, and told her about this. She looked out the window but told me there was no one there. They had probably already left. And this is where things start to get strange, and I also started to worry about my health at that moment. I also looked out with her, and once again I saw it clearly. He was standing in the same place and completely motionless, but my wife was next to me and she couldn't see him. Honestly, I got scared because I thought it might be some kind of brain problem. Nothing like this had ever happened to me before, and I remembered that my uncle, who unfortunately fought against a brain tumor, also had hallucinations. The whole time I went to wash my face, cleared my head, went back outside, and this person, or whatever it was gone. A few days went by, and one night while I was in the living room at home, I looked outside and saw this person again. In this case, it was more like a shadow because there wasn't much light, but I knew it was the same thing. He was standing on the porch of these neighbors' house, looking toward the front door. This time I remained silent, observing and anticipating what would unfold. Since he wasn't moving, I went out to the street. I had to know what this was about, and as I started to cross, this shadow dissolved in front of me, into the air. It was something so incredible that I can hardly explain it to you today with the right words. My concern grew, as you can imagine, but a few days later, something happened that made me feel a bit more at ease. It was actually the neighbor of this house who told my wife about something that was happening and was worrying them. She told her that for weeks, a man dressed in black had been walking inside the house and then disappearing. They heard noises, also the crying of a woman from time to time, and putrid smells. And another thing that scared them a lot was smelling something burning. When my wife told me this, it was overwhelming. First of all, because I realized that I was seeing something that maybe wasn't from our plane. And finally, I remembered that both times I saw this entity, I also smelled something burning. And this surely wasn't a coincidence, although I had no idea why this was happening. We recommended, even though we didn't attend any church, that he seek the advice or help of a priest. If what was happening was real, maybe they would know what to do. That's how, a few days later, the pastor of a local evangelical church came to the house with 2 other people. They came in and, from what we learned later, they did some kind of cleansing or exorcism. I wouldn't know what to call it. According to him, there was a demon and he was able to get rid of it, but he recommended that they attend church to protect themselves as much as possible. And that's what they did, starting off without hesitation for some time. But later, little by little, something changed in this family. They weren't seen like before anymore. The blinds of the house were kept down at all times, whereas before they would raise them like in any other house to let in the light and air it out. The plants, a detail I can't forget, had completely dried up, at least in the front, which is what you could see. They stopped talking to the neighbors, only saying hello the few times they went out. Another very important detail. And something that was worrying was that during that time, I saw this shadow lurking around the house again.
And always.
I always felt that burnt smell, now accompanied by a new sensation, nausea and a terrible headache. I clung to the idea that I wasn't the only one who had seen it. This couple also witnessed it, so I started to think that for some reason I could see it and I had to do something about it. So one afternoon I went over to see this man to tell him that I had seen this shadow again. But do you know what happened? The first thing was that when I stepped onto the sidewalk of this house, I felt something. Don't ask me to explain what it was, but it was something that kept me from moving forward. The man, without greeting me, said he didn't want to talk to anyone, got into his car and left. So I went back home feeling really bad, and as soon as I walked in, my body went back to normal. Then I realized that there was something in that place that was not good at all. My wife also tried to talk to the woman and she couldn't either because, like I told you before, they were isolated from everything and everyone. There was practically no way to reach them. And to understand a little more and realize how serious the situation was, not even their own son could be with them. Of course, he would go into the house and visit them, but much less than before, and it was certain that his visits ended with shouting and fights. And nobody knew why. The son had no intention of discussing family matters, which is understandable. All of this that I'm telling you happened over the course of about 6 or 7 months since
They had moved.
I kept seeing these shadows. I smelled something burning, and each time it terrified me more. Deep inside, I felt it was something evil, but I had no idea what to do about everything that was happening to me. Until one early morning, when everything got worse, I woke up feeling nauseous and smelling something burning, stronger than ever before during all that time. The first thing I thought was that this entity was now in our house. But the smell was so strong that I woke up my wife and she smelled it too. That's when we got worried. We got up to check the house and what we saw was terrifying. Through the living room window, we saw how the house across the street was catching fire uncontrollably. My wife immediately called 911 to alert them and request firefighters. And meanwhile, I was in shock because I wasn't just watching this house burn down. I clearly saw on the porch this dark shadow that remained motionless, just like so many times before. But now in the middle of the flames. Minutes later, the whole block was in an uproar. Firefighters, police, ambulances, lots of neighbors who came out to see what was happening, and also someone else. The son of this couple was there, shouting because he didn't know if his parents were okay. It took several hours to extinguish the fire, which completely destroyed the house. And the couple lost their lives. That night, in the middle of the fire, their son was understandably desperate. An ambulance even assisted him, but he was in very bad shape because, of course, he was left alone. From what we learned, he didn't have much more family. And this is where you could say everything ended, but it didn't, because something else happened that, as I mentioned at the beginning, made me really scared. As for the house nowadays, after years it remains in ruins, just like after that fire. However, two details seem odd. I saw this shadow several times among the ruins of this house during the following weeks. And not only that, I also saw it in another house on the block near the other corner. Several times, while driving by or walking my dog, I saw it. It was standing in the garden. As before, it happened at night with minimal light. I only saw a dark silhouette. But I knew immediately that it was the same thing. You know what? Something caught my attention. I didn't smell anything burning this time. Something else was going on. I felt short of breath, like I was suffocating, but it was just for that moment. Once I moved away, the feeling went away. In that house lived a woman alone, about 55 years old or so. She had been widowed about 10 years ago. She had 2 daughters who came to visit her often, and she always seemed fine. She was a completely normal person. It was tremendous for the neighborhood, and fundamentally, for me to find out that this woman had died. And it was even more shocking to find out how it all happened. While she was having dinner, she choked on her food and couldn't call for help. She suffocated while she was alone at home during the night. Her daughter was the one who found her 3 days later. For me, as I told you, this was very shocking because I immediately connected it to this entity, which I managed to see on several occasions. She was in her house, and the feeling when I saw her was exactly like how she died, suffocating. Whereas before going back in time, I would smell something burning, and interestingly, that's what happened to the house a few weeks later. The question I asked myself at that moment, and even to this day, is why did this happen to me? Why was I able to see her? What is that entity? Is it death? Is it something else? I don't know. I have many more questions, but above all, I'm afraid. And I just hope it never comes looking for me or anyone in my family. Thanks for reading to the end. I hope you enjoyed it as I mentioned at the start. It's a really intense story that makes us realize that many times things happen around us, and we don't know what kind of energies are involved. Friends, I'll see you in a few days, and now I'm sending a big hug to all of you.